When you want to master something on the guitar, it's really helpful to go and look at the source to fully understand it. You know, to learn blues, you've got to understand the significance of Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters. But if you really want to understand music theory, imagine if you could go back in time to the very beginning of music. Ancient Greeks were some of the first people to discover the hidden meanings of music and uncover some of the amazing mysteries. And they discovered these simple 4-note patterns, and they named them after different regions, like the Kingdom of Phrygia. The Lydian mode, named after a place near Turkey. They named one of them after the Dorians, whose music embodied strength and dignity. The way they analyze music is using this system called Tetra Chords. Now, it's actually really simple. A tetra chord is a 4-note scale that spans the distance between a root note and a perfect fourth. So here's an A note and a D. So this wasn't just a Greek thing. You know, the Byzantine church built their entire musical system on tetra chords. They used them to create these sacred modes called octa-echoes. And then in Persia, Arabic music uses tetra chord structures called jins. Now here's where it gets really interesting though. The same ancient concept is hiding in plain sight in our modern major scale. What we're going to do is break it down into 2 tetra chords like this. Say we're in the key of A. Here's the first tetra chord. And here's the second. So it's 2 groups of 4 notes, right? And it's the same pattern both times. So you start on the root note, and then you go a whole step and a half step. And then you start on the secondary tetra chord, which is the E note. And then you're going to do the same thing. So you go up a whole step, and then another whole step and a half step. It lends itself to creating some really awesome runs, just using 2 simple patterns. So here's the first one. Here's tetra chord 1. So it's that simple 4-note pattern. You're going to start on the root note here, and then play this little pattern where you go up a whole step and then a half step. Just 4 simple notes like that. And then you're going to go to the next one, which is starting on the E note right here, and you're going to play exactly the same pattern. So you start on the root note, and this time you're going to slide up and then play the whole step, half step. So the whole pattern's going to go like this. Tetra chord 1, tetra chord 2. So you put that together and you get this. So it's just the major scale, right? But because we're thinking of it in all these little groupings of 4 notes, normally you think of the scale as a 7-note scale, which is kind of a hard grouping to think about. But when you break it into 4 notes at a time, it makes it so much easier. But the other thing is, you're kind of getting double your money in some ways, because when you play the second tetra chord, instead of ending on that 7th note, the 8th note is part of the pattern. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When you go to the next octave, you start on the same note and you just play exactly the same pattern again. So here's your root note. So you play that same pattern, root note, and then whole step, half step. Go up to the next string, same thing again, root, whole step, half step. So it's the same pattern again. So you put the whole thing together, you get this. And then you can keep going, same exact pattern again. Then you run out of strings, so you have to move up. So the whole pattern going all the way across the fretboard is just that root plus the whole step, half step pattern. Now notice I'm playing the octave note twice. That's just to make the point that the octave note in this system has this kind of dualistic idea where it's both the end of the second tetrachord but the beginning of the next one. You put that together, there's a great way of being able to kind of play those tetrachord patterns all across the neck of the guitar. And it just kind of makes you think of it in a different kind of light. So But it doesn't just stop there. If you really want to understand and get the full advantage of learning any kind of patterns on the guitar, you also want to be able to kind of harmonize those scales and figure out what chords go with them. And that's as simple as just dropping a chord on each note of the Tetra chord. If you take the first one, all you do is drop a chord on each of those notes. So, and then you do the same thing with the next set, which is nice and easy with this because you can see it right laid out on your fingers. So the whole harmonized major scale is like this. So let me explain that to you, because it's important to understand this. The way that you create chords and create harmony is the basic chord is built from the first, third, and fifth degrees of the scale. So all you got to do is just walk up the scale and pick out the first, third, and fifth. So for example, starting on the root note, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5. Now there's two ways you can make a major chord. You can make it just as a straight triad like this, or you can make it as a root and a fifth with a triad on top of that, which would be like this. Here you've got a root, there's your fifth, and there's your triad on top. And that's really the only two ways you can build basic chords. So I'll show you with the triads here. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, walk it up the scale. You just pick out 1, 3, 5. And then you do the same thing on the next note. So starting on this B note here, the second note of the scale. So you're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5. That makes it a minor, because you can see there's a minor third there. And then if you go to the next note, C sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 3, 5. As you can hear there, again, it's a minor, 1, 3, 5, minor. And then next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, major. Next one, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, major. Play it like this, or like this. The D shape moved up. And then you go to the F sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minor. Or like this. And then the last one, here's a little bit interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's like a minor, 1, 3. But the fifth is also a minor fifth, which is called a diminished fifth. So that's where diminished chords come from, because the seventh chord in any key, the fifth of that chord is a diminished interval. So that's where diminished chords come from. So you just play that like this. So there's your whole harmonized scale. So you've got Tetra chord 1 would be, and then Tetra chord 2 would be. So you put that all together. Now you can also extend that system to find your seventh chords as well in exactly the same way. So you can just basically just with each root note walk up to the seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So with the first chord, if you add that seventh note in, it's going to be an A major 7. Then you go to the next one. So you've got your B minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. B minor 7. And then you end up with, if you're just going to go through and do that, C sharp minor 7, D major 7. Here's the interesting one. When you get to the E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's a minor 7th, which gives you this sound here, E7. So that's where dominant 7th comes from. Dominant 7 is a major chord with a flat 7 or a minor 7 in it. And then minor 7 for F sharp minor. And then the diminished, call that a half diminished or a minor 7 flat 5 chord like this. So it's got a beautiful sound. And then back to the root again. So that gives you all your seventh chords. You got major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and then back to the root. And if you go up through the Tetra chords this way, it's even easier to see because you've got and then the sevenths. So now that you know that, you can start to kind of think like how the Greeks thought and discover the sound of modes. So an easy way to understand modes is just, all you're going to do is take that system that we've already developed there, just with our little scale, and And all you're going to do is keep those exact same notes, keep that exact same pattern, but change the tonal center by superimposing one of those different 7 chords over the top of that scale and making that the root note instead of the A. So for example, if I just play an A chord like this, over the top, and over the top of that play the scale, it's going to give you that major scale sound. But if I take that same exact lick there and play it over the top of a B minor chord, play those same notes, see the sound changes, you know, and that gives you the Dorian sound. So the second chord gives you the Dorian sound. Gives you that jazzy kind of sound. And then if you go to the third chord and play that same exact scale, gives you that real dark sounding. Those Phrygians must have been up to something really mysterious and dark. If you go up the next one, you get the Lydian, which is a beautiful scale. This is what they use in film music. That kind of longing sound. Here's a really important one. The 5th, Mixolydian. If you go to the 6th chord, F sharp minor, that just gives you your natural minor sound. Aeolian. That beautiful, sad scale. And then the last one, the Locrian. That diminished kind of sound. But the most common ones basically would be the Ionian or the major, so perfect and harmonious, and then the Dorian, which gives you that kind of more of the jazzy sound, that Santanary sound. And then that Mixolydian, that's the source of all rock and blues. And all that comes from just this little pattern here. All right, I hope you have fun with that, and let me know what are some of your favorite songs using some of these little patterns, some of these modes and interesting sounds. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and if you like the video, give us a subscribe and give us a thumbs up, and remember, turn it up.